Greetings to everyone, friends. A few minutes ago, the German publication Deutsche Welle published the speeches of German Chancellor Merz and Zelensky, who also arrived in Germany. And the statements being made there actually show what Ukrainian men can expect in the near future. Maybe even this year, maybe after March 4th, 2027, because in fact all the cards are being revealed now. First, yes, it's that the Chancellor of Germany, Merz, before these statements that we will now discuss, has already said several times that young Ukrainian men are needed in Ukraine. They should serve their country, not come to Germany in large numbers. And just a few months ago, he asked Ukraine to change its legislation in order to make it harder for men to leave, so that they would all go to the front. Zelensky has also repeatedly stated that the armed forces of Ukraine wanted the return of men of mobilization age so that there would be proper rotation, so that those who have been fighting since 2022 could at least occasionally get some rest. And Germany, in fact, is now also introducing, or at least trying to introduce, restrictions, so that their men aged 17 to 45 also cannot leave freely. But under public pressure, we see that for now they are abandoning this idea. In fact, what statements were made and what actually happened today? It all started with Ukraine and Germany signing an agreement on strategic partnership in the field of defense. But right after that, there was already a statement from Merz, where they were together, and Merz actually said that we will work on reducing the number of Ukrainian men who have left Ukraine. It's important that these men help their country, so we see that Germany and Merz are determined that during the war, men should return to Ukraine. And it was also reported that Ukrainian and German services will work on this together, in order to maximize the results from returning Ukrainian men from Germany back home. And we understand, and here it is also very important to understand thoroughly, that if Germany makes such decisions, other European Union countries will make similar decisions as well. Because we remember that Germany is a driving force, and if Germany does this, then, in principle, the entire European Union could take the same course. And we have already talked about this with you before. Today, we simply received confirmation of what is actually happening. There. After this, Zelensky also made his statement. It is quite unambiguous. And it is also important to understand that the situation is escalating. As strange as it may sound, he said this: people of draft age who have gone abroad, our services together with Germany will deal with this. The armed forces of Ukraine would like them to return home. This will actually affect everyone inside. That is, all Ukrainians who are abroad, who have Ukrainian citizenship and who are subject to conscription. That is, from 25 to 60 years old. He also said this: young people who are not of conscription age have the right to stay abroad. The responsibility for defending the state should be borne by every person who is Ukrainian, is able-bodied, has a constitutional duty, and is of conscription age. It seems to me that it's clearer now. The answer regarding what Ukraine will do and how it will cooperate with the countries of the European Union is completely and fully understandable. They want to create conditions in Europe so that Ukrainians return either voluntarily or perhaps even involuntarily, in order to be able to replenish the ranks of the armed forces of Ukraine. We remember that this is exactly what the 90 billion euro loan is being prepared for, right? Which Europe will provide to Ukraine. An interest-free loan, and in fact we can understand that there may be secret agreements. Even just in theory that we give you 90 billion and you keep fighting, and we have time to prepare for this war. And I will also remind you that the New York Times reported on this, clearly stating that Europe is interested in and demands that Ukraine continue the war, in order to keep Ukraine tied up, so that the Russian army doesn't come to Europe and start a war there. For my part, here's what I want to say. In my opinion, a person is not and cannot be a resource of the state. A state cannot dispose of, a democratic state, I remind you, cannot dispose of the lives of its citizens. Every person has the right to make their own choices. They have the right to freedom, and they have the right to choose where and how to live, what to do, and who to be. And in fact, the life of an individual, their freedom to decide where to live, where to work, where to build their future, is a fundamental thing that cannot be violated. And we see that in Germany, for example, when they tried to simply introduce a requirement for Germans to report when they travel abroad for 3 months. As soon as they tried to introduce such restrictions, they immediately faced public outcry and rolled back. There was a very, very negative reaction from society. With Ukrainians, we see and they see that things can be done differently. They can twist and turn things however they want. And yes, on the other hand, I understand that there will be such comments. And I understand that the war in Ukraine is ongoing. I understand that it's hard on the front line. Many have been fighting for 4 years without proper conditions. Without rotation, without leave. That's true. It hurts. It's very, very negative. And it shouldn't be this way. But that doesn't mean that politicians, whether European or Ukrainian, can come out and tell others what to do or force others to do what they want. And in this way, deprive a person of the freedom of choice. Basically, of freedom, yes. And not give a person the right to manage their own life. No one has such authority. Neither moral nor legal. And this cannot be allowed. And you know, if someone starts to think that they have the right to control the lives of other people, we remember what that leads to. It leads to fascist Germany. It leads to the Soviet Union. It leads to Russia as it is today. It leads to North Korea and so on. When someone starts deciding for other people how they should live and what they should spend their own lives on. Next. About Ukrainians abroad. We clearly understand that the majority of Ukrainians abroad work, pay taxes, send money to their relatives, help volunteers, donate, and so on. That's how it was, that's how it is, and that's how it will be. This is also a contribution. It exists and people make it. And most importantly, they do it voluntarily. Voluntarily. Right? Why do people leave Ukraine at all and move around the world? First of all, people are looking for a better life. Secondly, people want to save and protect their lives. The lives of their loved ones, their relatives, the lives of their families. The lives of their future families for those who might not have a family yet. But people have some plans for their lives. And when any politician comes out and starts saying that your plans for life are worthless and that they will decide for you how your life should be managed, then, in my opinion, that's completely unacceptable and it shouldn't be that way. When politicians like Merz, Zelensky, or someone else start talking about the need to reduce the number of Ukrainian men in Europe, about how everyone needs to return, everyone needs to serve their country, and so on. First of all, this just sounds like pressure on the freedom of choice. Right? In general. And what about freedom of choice? Because many people say, you went abroad and you're traitors. No, friends. Freedom of choice is not betrayal. Freedom is a fundamental, basic human right. And I will always say that a person is more important than the state. Because for every person, their life is more important than anything else. That's all you need to understand. And I think that if someone believes they can give their life for something and that their life is not valuable, let's put it this way. If it's not as valuable as something else, that's a personal choice, but that person can't impose it on everyone else. At the moment, what is known is that such statements are starting to be made, but there is no direct deportation or any kind of forced return from Germany, Poland, the Czech Republic, or other countries. But these are warning signs that this could become reality for everyone. Ukrainians who work diligently in Europe, pay taxes, open businesses, make donations there, and have already been living abroad for 10 years. We see that this doesn't play any role at all, and in the future anyone could end up under this steamroller. What can they do? They can make it harder for conscription-age men to renew documents. And for example, Norway is already refusing temporary protection to such Ukrainians. Next, Ukraine, under pressure, may change the rules for leaving the country, or even without pressure, may simply change the rules for leaving. And this is also a very, very strong psychological attack, which you will see. Both anti-Ukrainian forces in Europe will spread this now, and it will also be amplified across Ukrainian media. About how Europe doesn't want Ukrainians, Europe is tired of Ukrainians, and as they say, all those who avoided service should be sent back to Ukraine. And they don't care about that. What plans people have for their lives, how those people live their lives, and what they actually want. So, right now there's a situation where some people are just telling others, actually not even telling, but simply deciding how others should live their lives. That's how it is. What do I want to say about this? That you just need to keep your finger on the pulse. That's it. You need to pay attention to other statements, and most importantly, you need to watch the actions that will be taken. And it's quite possible that there could even be a scenario where Ukrainians living in Europe, even those who have been living there for years, for decades, might face the following choice: either return to Ukraine or leave the territory of the European Union completely for third countries. And in this case, just the same, every Ukrainian will have to, or maybe not have to, I don't know, it's up to you, make a decision for themselves about what to do. Whether to return to Ukraine or simply move to another country outside the European Union. Be sure to write what you think about this, because honestly, this topic has just become relevant literally a few minutes ago. So, write what you think about this. You see, I'm trying not to spread panic or fear, as people often comment under my videos. I'm just trying to break down what's going on and what I think about it in a constructive way. So I'll be grateful for your subscriptions, your likes, and your comments. As always, I wish everyone a great day. See you next time.